Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Pune. This is the place where I started my working career many years ago with Unilever in a totally different sort of business that I thought I was getting into. It was the animal feeds business, and it's been really exciting. Uh, 25 years later, in 2007, I had spent 25 years in marketing and working with different brands in Levers and Nestle and Motorola and a garment and soft toy company in different parts of the world. And I was really excited and very passionate about brand building. But what had happened also is that around 2000, I had stumbled into running quite by accident while based in Chicago. And 7 years later, in 2007, I said, this is where my passion really is. Um, is there some way of mixing this passion with this experience in marketing? And so what I'm going to talk about is creating a business of passion and some of my learnings along the way and some of my challenges that I've had. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So I'd like to fast forward to May 2010. I was in South Africa running an 89-kilometer run called the Comrades Marathon. And and I said, I could never, ever have imagined that I would be running even 5 kilometers. And now I'm here running 89 kilometers. But what was amazing was that there were 16,000 guys who were doing this run. And I said, we're all incredibly passionate about running, for sure, but all also very exceedingly optimistic, exceedingly positive. And I said, passion is something that when you look at it and translate it into your business, it gets you to think long term. It gets you to think quite differently than if you weren't really passionate about a business or about your job or what else you were doing. Because you tend to see things differently. You tend to see things that could be much more sticky and much more valuable. I had seen, before I started the company I've started, I'd seen people getting transformed at the start of a run. People getting totally energized and people being totally different. Seen relationships and bonding happening like no other, and seen emotion at the finish line when people finish, and the sense of pride, sense of achievement, and grown people becoming kids again, and running and sweating and grueling it out, battling it out. For what? For that little piece of paper called a certificate and a little piece of metal called a medal. Because that sense of pride and accomplishment that I think was what I saw as the ultimate sort of power that something as simple as running could deliver. And so I thought, hey, so what can I do? And what could be, say, what fantastic thing could I think of, at least think of putting on the table? And I said, I've seen so many different benefits of something as simple as running accrue to myself. And as I ran and met all sorts of people in my job that used to get me to travel a lot, running in different long-distance runs, I said, I've seen people getting transformed, getting so significantly more positive, stress-free. We're all stressed, right? But this is a great stress buster. People getting much more humble because you think you can do it, and hey, one of these days you just can't do it, and then you have another good day, or you have lots of learnings. So you see. And I've run with CEOs, truck drivers, villagers, investment bankers, the wealthiest of the people, etc., and seen them all kind of coming together. And I said, okay, so imagine a place where maybe we find people who are like parts of really tight, energized communities, people who are really positive at that point of time. And if there's a place where my marketing experience and the experience of having participated in some of the best runs in the world could make for a sustainable business, that I thought would be fantastic. And that's what I started thinking about and said, let me see what I can do and to get this started. So in August of '07, I I switched gears and moved on from Motorola and switched my work clothes from this to this. And I said, this is something that was going to be exceedingly difficult because, hey, I've been working for 25 years, waiting for that paycheck to come on the first of the month. If it didn't come on the first and it came on the second, there'd be panic and chaos at the house and, how do various bills get paid? So it was, of course, challenging, daunting. Everyone said, you've gone a little cuckoo. And but I thought I knew what I was doing. And I said, I think this is a seemingly new space. There's some fantastic runs, and they're great marketing events. And I said I've seen lots of them, but I've not seen one where the two are kind of intermeshed, and maybe let's start something here. So that's what started running and living Infotainment, which was the company I started in 2007. And I said that this is the marketing company. It's all about enabling brands to connect with their highly charged customers to unleash their potential. And I said, you know what? Actually, it goes one step beyond and say, we're in the business of getting 200 million people to start running. So friends will say, okay, I get the top part potentially if I really think about it. But what is this 200 million stuff? So I said, how are you going to measure it? So actually, I'm not going to measure it. I think it's just going to make me think a little differently. It's going to make me think big. It's going to get me out of my comfort zone. It's going to make me think national, global, rural. You got to work with governments, bureaucrats, corporates, school kids, doctors, and the works. But the focus is around using running as a marketing platform, and that's where I'm going to be tightly focused. So that's how it kind of started. So I think one of the things I realized, and in hindsight, I was really glad that I set this sort of big, hairy, audacious goal of 200 million people and getting something as esoteric as running and marketing, trying to put them together. Because there are often times when things obviously don't go right and they don't go the way you planned it. But if you got something that's a guiding light at the end of that tunnel and you say, hey, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and I'm going to look for it and I'm going to find it because I know it's there, that kind of charges you up to weather the storm and see a little bit of light where initially there's darkness or where other people see darkness. And I think it also makes you think beyond money. Money is a means to an end. Shouldn't be an end in itself. And I think if you got everything else going right and vision and passion, as one talked about earlier, get that probably the equation in place to make that money happen. So you got to think beyond money. Last month I was in Corbett Park, and normally one is very lucky with seeing tigers at various national parks that one goes to. But I was reflecting, and I said, hey, there are lots of people who've come back disappointed, haven't seen a tiger. And I said, this is a lousy experience. And I was saying, actually, they've seen all the things that the guys have seen, the guys who've seen a tiger have seen. They've probably heard the call of the barking deer, but may not have kind of understood the significance. Heard the call of the langur, and whereas the guys with the focus said, okay, there's one call there, one call there. Either the tiger's shifting that side, or it's generally in that area, and I got to sit and wait, and I'm going to sit and wait for an hour. And the guys without patience move on and go to another exciting scenic spot. And I think very often that's what happens in business. And I think focus you need that broad vision to charge yourself up, but then you need that focus to help you take decisions and say, I am going to be in this business, or I'm not going to be in that business. Because lots of guys would say, hey, Rahul, I think you're doing a fantastic thing, and hey, but running is a bit too narrow. Why don't you look at wellness? That'll be a great space, and we've got some opportunities in this company and that company that I run, et cetera. And I said, I think wellness is a fantastic area, but my passion and my focus is really around running, and it can expand into a multi-dimensional kind of area. Other people said, hey, why don't you look at selling shoes from so-and-so brand on your website, and look at personalized training, because there's a huge market for people who are wanting to get better, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, those are fantastic opportunities to make money, and maybe that's an area that I'll get to later on. But at this point in time, I want to focus on the marketing aspect, and I want to make sure that it's focused around running. And once that builds, and the core builds, then you can obviously add on other things. Otherwise, it would get you defocused. So I really believed really strongly in that focus and patience, because you got to have that self-belief. You got to have seen some successes. You got to, I mean, you're stupid first to take that decision to leave and then join, do something like this. But you've got to have that self-belief that's going to say, I think I'm constantly reading some stuff that is showing me that this is the right way to go, or I've changed tack. But that patience becomes critical. So I had this great vision of what I was going to do, and I have these couple of big runs and all that sort of stuff. So 5 days after quitting from Motorola, I fixed up an appointment with who at that time was the head honcho in the area of athletics in the country. And I said, hey, this is what I'd like to do, and we'd like to use the facilities, and what does it cost, and what's the procedure, and all that. So his first question back was, so which group is supporting you? So I looked at her, I said, I didn't really understand the question, but 5 minutes later, it sunk in. He was obviously trying to see how much money could be juiced out of me. So I said, thank you very much, and I walked out of that place. And I said, oh gosh, there goes my business plan and these things that I've been thinking of. So instead of the Eiffel Tower, I saw some similar sort of structure, and that was the sort of structure I saw. So I said, well, one of my philosophies has been is that, like some of the speakers earlier, that there's no such thing as a failure. You only have learnings. So you say, okay, can't do this big run sort of format that one had seen and been used to. It may happen later on. But maybe we'll do something different, and we'll do thousands of runs. And we'll try to get people in supercharged kind of smaller communities and just spread this all over the place and make sure that this becomes a sort of a movement. And then guys will actually say, okay, hey, why don't you use this stadium? I said, I'd like to come back on those terms. And I said, I'm not going to compromise my values as for doing something like this. I want to have a good night's sleep, and I'm going to remain quite positive. So actually, I'm really glad in hindsight that I had that really lousy first meeting 5 days after having switched gears. The second thing one has found is that the best way to go down, I got into skiing too, and the best way to go down a steep ski slope is you have to be doing your zigzag and so obliquity. And in our runs that we do, and we started doing, people said, hey, people aren't really interested in running. I said, yeah, I'm not asking them to run. I'm asking them to come to make some new friends, asking them to come and give out some old clothes. There's some homeless street kids that we're going to give out clothes to, but they're actually going to be running with us, and at the finish line, we're going to give them clothes. Or there's going to be a sapling plantation drive, but hey, that sapling plantation drive is after this little short run, so come with your family and make it fun. So there were other things that kind of added to the stickiness of the event. Very important, keep listening to people, figuring out what people are wanting, or what's working, what's not working, and adapting. And I tell our folks that we're really not in the business of acquiring customers. We're in the business of building relationships, whether it's with a supplier or whether it's with a person who's coming to our run or having an experience, because that's the time when you know that you've got stickiness, and those people are going to become evangelists, and some of them are going to be corporates who you say, hey, actually, why don't you become a sponsor? Why don't you look at this in this light? And some of those have begun to happen. So I would say that one of the things one has definitely learned is you got to keep learning. You got to keep that antenna up and seeing new angles to everything. So we've got about 60% of our runs are free. So people charge for their runs. We say, okay, we'll do a lot of free runs. People have large format runs. We say we'll do multiple runs across, which will be small format, but high intensity engagement. And those are going to be really about relationship building, and those are really going to be about marketing. Say, I tell folks that in a large run, hey, maybe you get a huge number of eyeballs, so it's fantastic for launching something. But once you've done that, you probably need to then get into a high intensity, high energy engagement. And say, what are the ways in which you can keep changing the rules? Because you say, hey, I don't have pots of money, and I'm not looking at a model where one is going to, at this point in time, kind of IPO and have like $6 billion of market cap. So you got to make sure that someone bigger than you, a gorilla, doesn't come in and say, okay, I'll replicate this model. So it make it really tough for people to replicate things. And so you got to keep changing the rules and look at different sorts of engagement. And like some folks said before, every day needs to be the start of something fantastic. So you start something, and as soon as you get up the first 2 steps, you see a different view. And you say, wow, I can take this route now. And so when people say, hey, what's your formula for the run? I say, actually, I don't have any formula. But the real formula is it's got to be fun for everyone. It's got to be fun for the guys who are running. It's got to be fun for the volunteers. It's got to be fun for the sponsors. It's got to be fun for the media. It's got to be fun for everyone. Otherwise, what's the point? And that's what's going to make it different. That's what's going to make it sticky and wonderful to come to again. So I'd just like to end with saying, vision is necessary to kind of give you that big picture, and that's what I found for myself, and to drive you when it's pretty dark. With that, but along with some razor-sharp focus, so you can make some choices. And I'd like to be waiting for that day somewhere in the near future when we have a couple of million people running and about 100 brands engage with us, because I think then, truly, I believe that one will have at least got to the start of something that's quite fantastic. Thanks.